Okay, looks like we are live. Wonderful. Today I'm going to be playing the Beastmen and the Lizardmen primarily on my ranked ladder. So it should be fun today. It's another endeavor just to get my practice in on other factions. And yeah, it should be good. Sorry, my queuing up onto my ladder was suddenly very laggy. But it finally got there, and it seems like we have queued up against Strat Game. So I'll go ahead and set up a lobby, and then we can dive right on into some games. All right. Let's see, host the battle. Lobby up. And they should be joining in just a second. Oh, never mind. They have to DQ. All right, then I guess we're waiting. Okay, so in the meantime, I guess time to chill and talk with chat. Maybe answer some questions about Beastmen and Lizardmen. Beastmen recently have gone a nerf and a buff, although they can't use the broken chariots anymore. They are able to take 4 chariots now in their builds, and I feel like this is going to result in some pretty crazy situations, but that is what I shall be testing. So we shall see. All right. All right. But yeah, ladder has been it's been pretty good recently, actually. It's been fairly constantly growing. For those of you that don't know, watching me for the first time, the ladder is it's just a ranked ladder for Warhammer that I made on my Discord. We are starting a new season too, actually. It's going to be at the end of tomorrow is when that will be. And let me see if I can find that blocker. Yeah, nope, that's wrong. There we go. Yeah, there's the Ent-Ladder. Autumn season starting September 18th. Deadly Bunny saying broken chariots still technically limited in banner rules. Yes, that is true. And not updated yet. As far as I know too. Yeah, I guess just the fruit rules managed to beat out banner there in terms of schedule and getting something out on time. Oh, I do have to be careful. I'm limited to 4 skirmishers in the air. So that actually would change my coast play, but basically just Vampire Coast. But yeah, the thing about Tuskor Chariots right now, they are extremely strong as a chariot. They're one of the best chariots in the game because they have very high mass. Yeah, actually, they have like the highest mass out of almost all chariots in the game, I think. They're sort of like White Lion chariots, but they cost way less. So, something to be feared for sure. But they're not broken, so I can take a ton of them. I can even go for, you know, double War Gore. This was popular, but they actually did get a nerf. They cost a little bit more now. Plus 200 gold. But this is what we'll be trying out. I feel like it might be actually pretty crazy. Not updated as far as you're aware. It's kind of sad. You know, some tournament hosts have changed it on their side, but not stated anywhere, so it's hard to bring them. Oh, like the Tuskor chariots? Yeah. It's a little bit weird, but hey, at least we don't have 3 rule sets. I think we actually did have 3 rule sets at one point in time, which was pretty crazy. I hope I can find some games on the ladder, by the way. I feel like some people might be playing less because it is resetting in a couple days. So people are sort of waiting on that the tournament has locked in. So yeah, there's actually not a lot of incentive to play aside from just playing and having fun. So I guess that's mostly what this stream is intended for. White Lions have healing. Oh, that's true. That's true. White Lions have healing. Tuskors have extremely cheap prices. How are things? Looking for an opponent? I am Rusta. If you wanna join in, but I did. Oh, there you go. Gotcha. All right. Nice. Lobby is up. Wait, I know you wanted to get some games in before, so this is a perfect opportunity. The lobby is called Enticity. Oh wait. So let's go ahead and bring up the scores. There we go. And yeah, so I haven't actually streamed since the Cathay news. I feel like that is pretty hype. Let's see here. There we go. Yeah, Cathay. Cathay's super interesting. I was trying to think of a way to sort of compare them to another faction, but they're actually so different from everything else that I feel like they're just a completely new beast in Warhammer multiplayer. The main thing being that they have air cavalry and ranged flying units, something that no other faction really has. I guess the Wood Elves come the closest with their flying single entities, but yeah, no other faction has ranged flying units plus flying cavalry. So I am super excited for that. Let's see, I gotta invite this guy to my friends list. There we go. Invite sent. Nice. Hey, Tequila Sunset. Happy to have you on stream. Frequent watcher of the stream. Happy to have you. Cathay looks amazing. Basically everything you love in Warhammer, including Cav, apparently. Yeah, they got the ground Cav. Oh well, we don't know for sure, but some of my clanmates have seen that they have ground cavalry. But I think Tzinch is gonna be real fun. Cathay, I'm still sort of on the fence. It really depends on how well their gun lines do. Because I do like going pretty hard on my range units. But yeah, there you go. Let's see. Now it's going to be a chaos pick. Ban the Counts and the Greenskins. If you go the Lizardmen, which would be a little bit of a bad matchup. Beastmen is slightly better. So I think I will go for Beastmen. Should be good. Chaos, known for their elite infantry, could be quite scary. Just because Beastmen infantry will generally lose without support. That's why I have the chariots. You want those war balloons? I would like the thunder barge for dwarves. That would be amazing. The Lizardmen, if only close range. Oh, that's a Lizardmen, sort of. Pterodons and Ripperdactyls. That's like very sort of. They're so expensive, and I guess if Cathay's flying units are really expensive, that would be bad too. But like a 550 flying cavalry unit, or something sort of like Pegasus Knights, would be very different. I guess Ripperdactyls are sort of similar though. Cathay look like super dwarves. Doesn't every faction? The gliders? Which gliders? I don't think I saw gliders in Cathay. You mean like those sort of weird Pegasus? Those like green and red Pegasus flying guys? Hey Contende, happy to have you in chat. So for the new Beastmen playstyle, I really like going a lot of cheap infantry. Just because they, with the support of the chariots, they'll basically win any fight that they get themselves into. I have spent all of my money already. You know what? Let's just go for one throwing axes. I like to take the ROR all the time because he does come with the good old poison, which is great. I don't want to get murdered by air cheese either. Maybe I'll go for a pendulum. And I have to make sure I don't get kited either. That would be the worst case scenario. I'm curious what the Cathay guns will cost though. Yeah, prices really do make or break a lot of factions. I'll take a Cygor summon, I guess, and a Flock of Doom in case we see a box. That seems like... You know what, I'll cut the Flock of Doom, just a Cygor summon and Pendulum. Just so that I have a little bit of anti-box. If we do see a bunch of kite style of play from the Chaos, be a little bit worrying. Maybe I want a single Ungor Raider. You usually can't go wrong taking one of them. And the rest of the army, I guess, can be... Let's see here. Let's see. I can do something like this. I got my Ungor line. I got one Raider for anti-skirmisher. That feels a little bit risky. So actually, I will take two of them instead. And then do something like this. There we go. So I have a very small front line, but I do have 4 chariots. And I'm hoping that the Wargors can beat single entities here. If they can't, I'm a little bit boned. Just a tiny bit. Oh, I forgot I had my screen blocker up. You guys couldn't see anything. No! No, that was unintended. Cathay's campaign sounds terrible. Lots of siege defense. It really depends on how fun the siege maps are. Apparently, they're getting a rework. At least I think CA confirmed that a long time ago. So, you know, and we did, in the trailer, it very much looked like a siege map, I gotta say. The sort of the high ground, you could see like the wall, the low wall, telltale signs of a siege map on one of the promotional pictures. There actually was a capture point in the background. So I think it's almost 100% a siege map. And it has bridges and stuff. So in terms of defense, it's a little bit dynamic. Attacking it probably won't be as fun unless they change the AI though. You're about to say you hope that the Thunder Barge is now on the table. There's no way they're not going to add it. That would just be cruel if they didn't. I would be... How could they not after giving us air balloons? If the maps are anything like the trailer, then you're happy. So actually one of the maps is pretty sketchy. The one, the Great Bastion. Sort of the Great Wall of China, but for Cathay. That map looked like a siege map from Warhammer 1. It looked pretty bad. So I'm hoping that that isn't the final product, because, you know, it was basically just that flat wall and then just a little bit of city behind. I don't think that they'll have extreme like height differences. Usually on most maps you don't see height differences like this. It just ends before that. So I don't know, I'm like a little bit sketched out by it, but I guess all we can do really is hope. Bubba's Big Blasting, it was a siege map, but maybe not a standard one. Probably similar to what we saw with Kislev and Khorne, yeah. It reminds me a lot of Eltharian's campaign, actually, and how his siege maps sort of worked out. Where, like, his capital was really interesting, but it didn't really add a lot of other cool siege things. Too bad then, hopefully they pleasantly surprise us. Yeah, that's the hope. I think that's all we can really hope for, isn't it? Alright, now getting on to the game. We do have the Marauder Horsemen pushing forwards at the start of the battle, getting in a good amount of damage in just by throwing their javelins at my front line, but my archers will far outtrade them. Exalted Hero does come in, and this is perfect time to get my Wargors in, but he actually does pull back, which is a nice play from him. Ungor Raiders, though, are just going to focus on the Marauder Horsemen, and then I can start using my chariots to win me some infantry fights, why don't we? I'm thinking, whoa! My lord, trying to get himself killed. almost succeeds, but we do stop him just in time. And the plan right now is to get these Centaurs along in the back line to start causing some trouble. Now, I don't really want to fight the hero squad just yet, as that actually is not really much in my favor. The hero squad is pretty scary. What is Malagor doing? What are you doing? How is he ending up in the middle of a bunch of halberds? Let's go ahead and pull him back out again. And yeah, like I said, I don't really want to fight this hero squad. It's quite scary. In fact, they do dive in onto my heroes now. And I'm going to pin them down with my cavalry and hope that my Centaurs can clean up all of the Chaos Warriors, and then I can win out in the late game. That's sort of the general plan here. Let's go ahead and get a Cygor summon to sort of support these guys. And then, yeah, just keep playing, keep away. With infantry support and some cycle charging, I'm quite confident I can win against the heroes. So as long as I can manage that, I should be good. These throwing axes, it looks like they are getting caught up by my Centaurs, so that is in my favor. And so far, it seems like the infantry fight has gone quite in my advantage. I haven't done any damage to those exalted heroes, though. Some of these Marauder horsemen are going to be a bit problematic too, unless I manage to catch them. It looks like my Centaurs will manage that, which is definitely good, which means that with the Chaos forces now routing, we can now go into the plan of cycle charging with the Wargors, now that I've secured a pretty nice advantage here. There are these chosen halberds, though, that are a little bit problematic, so I'm going to deal with them first before I really commit to killing off the heroes. So let's see, the plan is, let's see, probably hit them with the pendulum. I could hit the heroes with the Cygor summon too, but these chosen halberds, they are fairly well clumped up, so I feel like it's a good choice to just throw the pendulum on top of them. They're fairly slow too, so they have a hard time dodging. And since they're actually out of position, I think cycle charging with the Wargors should do fairly well for me now. So here we go. I'm focusing the Exalted Heroes first because they are fairly singled out. On the initial charge, these guys are pretty great, as they have insane charge bonuses of 80 and easily being able to pull away. Since these guys are surrounded, will be helping me out. The Centaurs too will be providing mass by just moving in front of these guys. And that should slow down any charges from these heroes. I can even use Malagor to cycle charge them. And then I'll be in a pretty good place. Now, Archaon, he is still quite scary. He actually has a decent amount of mass and has been pushing through a lot of my guys. So we'll see how well this actually goes. I have killed off the Exalted Hero, though. And let's see, I do have a few guys that have rallied, so I should bring them into the fight. Try and get them to clean things up. It's still quite scary though. The hero squad have actually killed off most of my infantry. Thankfully, with my cavalry now in the game, I think I'm in a little bit of a better position. I do still have a ton of archers too, and I will have a Cygor summon in just a second. But if the hero squad does manage to get a charge on my Wargors, I think that will be a pretty bad time. What is great though is that I do have the I do have my chariots back, my multi-model chariots, and their extra mass will really be able to pin down these heroes. And there we go, the first Chaos Exalted Hero routes off the battlefield. The Wargors, they might not even have to chase him off, since I should be able now to go in for the killing blow against Archaon, as he is completely surrounded here by the enemy forces. And just cycle charging with my guy should be enough to take him down. Pretty scary though. I very nearly lost the hero battle, but I think just focusing on the infantry really helped me out. And that is possible just because of all of the chariots that I managed to field. So taking a look at values, it looks like the chariots may have actually been fairly balanced, as they actually did normal levels of value, being very effective against mass infantry here. My Centaur, great weapons though, actually performing much better, getting some nice hammer and anvil going. And in general, although Archaon did well and this hero core was really scary, just the swarming at the end was more than enough. Alright, up one game. Alright, what's going on in the chat? You love this matchup? Spam Centaurs and dominate the mobility. Yeah, and dominate the mobility game. Yeah. The Centaur throwing axe, or Centaur great weapons, are a unit that I don't run very often. But they seem actually quite good. I might have been underrating them for a lot of my time playing Warhammer. Is this a cavalry beta? It isn't. But nevertheless, they still got value. How is that possible? It's, yeah, cavalry's still good as long as they're not getting countercharged. And in that game, as you saw, I was getting a lot of hammer and anvil, which is unaffected by the bug. Alright, now I need to switch the maps. It's going to be Karak Ungor now. And I'm going to go Lizardmen. And I will be banning the usual Lizardmen bans of, let's see, probably not dwarves. Let's ban the Tomb Kings and the Skaven. Pretty standard bans. If you can play the dwarf matchup. Not everyone can. But overall, it's not too difficult, I think. Ent-Ladder is better than Quick Battle? Oh, well, I hope so. I spent so much time developing it. Oh, and it's going to be a greenskin pick. Very interesting. Let's go ahead and load up our usual Lizardmen vs. Greenskin build. Let's see here. This is my typical kite build. And it's one that I want to get a bit more practice in with. So let's try that out. All Centaurs are OP, and the Great Weapon variant are insane in some matchups. Yeah, that armor piercing is actually pretty huge. It can even help in the Vampire Coast matchup. Just if you want to take out a lot of crabs. Just cycle charging Rotting Prometheans will actually take them out fairly quickly. Why don't you play Quick Battle if you play on large funds? I have no idea how that logic plays out, HK. But yeah, the reason we play on the ranked ladder is because it comes with the banner rules, you're playing best of threes, and it has matchmaking. So all things that are pretty great. Someday Black Pyramid. Someday. What's this? Are you talking about like you want a siege map for the Black Pyramid? Instead of like the very vanilla map that we have in game currently? Oh, okay, looks like my opponent is ready. Red Crested Skink Lord. Oh, that's true. I do prefer Mazdamundi though because of his nets. But the Red Crested Skink Chief, I should try out more often. This stream is an endeavor to learn or to practice my Beastmen and Lizardmen play. So actually trying out different units is going to be important for my overall practice. Why ban Skaven? It doesn't seem like a particularly bad matchup. Yeah, and Flying Taco puts it in. Skaven, they can give Lizardmen a hard time. There are people that have builds against Skaven. Sort of really optimizing a rush is generally the way to do it. But I think against a proficient enough Skaven player, I feel like I'd have a pretty hard time. Still though, it's something to explore. I would definitely like to play that matchup more. It's one that I've barely touched at all. Just because I usually ban it, and most Lizardmen players will also ban it, but like it will come up here and there if you play them a lot, maybe in pick 3 situations or a faction war. You have what have you. God, getting my phrases wrong today. All right, ready. So my opponent's army gonna be fairly small, which is better for a kite style of play. I have to be a little bit careful though. Slan gold map when? Which one is that? I feel like I might have seen it before. There's a lot of really bad maps in Warhammer. I hope in game 3 we get a proper map list of, you know, more competitive maps and more meme maps. Right now they're just all merged together alphabetically. Black Pyramid is your favorite wonky map? See, the thing about maps is that Warhammer really, it's not balanced around terrain. Is sort of the problem. Like, box strategies get extremely strong when you have walls to protect them. And there's not a lot of counterplay to really deal with that, aside from having the ranged power to break boxes. But not all factions have strong ranged, and so on and so forth. Forests don't have a lot of counterplay either, other than avoiding them. Because you can't shoot them out of forest either, because it blocks missiles. Sort of a strange situation. I hope with Warhammer 3 we get some more dynamic mixing of terrain in there. You like the maps in Troy, though you're not really good to judge maps. Well, you know, if they're fun, I think that's already fairly good feedback. But oh yeah, I forgot. My army and my opponent's army. What, we got Azag, we got Spirit Leech, and Aspect of the Dread Knight. Okay, so some terror. Throwing in a Spirit Leech on Mazdamundi, not a recommended play, since Mazdamundi, he can pretty easily heal himself back up. And in fact, I will just Apotheosis that entire Spirit Leech away. Very magic efficient for me. And off the bat, I can just get my skirmishers to poke away at the Savage Orc front line. They are unarmored. They will be taking a lot of damage on that front. Some, let's see, just some Forest Goblin Spider Riders on the flanks. They will have a very hard time versus my Carnosaur, plus some cavalry. Some of my Skink Skirmishers too supporting there. They should be able to more or less win that fight. Now, my goal right now is to try and shut down any ranged play for the Lizardmen. Not for the Lizardmen, for the Greenskins. These archers are probably the biggest threat to Mazdamundi that there is currently. So we'll see if I can take them out. Azag coming on in for a landing on the left-hand side. Actually, pretty scary for him. If he does get caught out here, he would just straight up die. He does disengage, thankfully, for my opponent. But with the front line of the Greenskins more or less crumbling, I think I have a pretty good lead now. Stone Trolls are exiting the battlefield, and I think instead of hitting up the skirmishers, I'm just going to net these Black Orcs so that I can annihilate them with some of my spells from Mazdamundi. Banishment on top of them, Ruination of Cities, the works. That should be able to deal with them quite easily. Now my right flank is going to get shut down by some of these skirmishers, some of the mobility of the Greenskins. And honestly, I think that's worth countercharging. So I'll be bringing in my cavalry to countercharge them, sort of ignoring these archers that my cavalry could have chased instead, because in the late game, it's generally worth it to value your mobility. Their cycle charging with enough micro can get just absolutely insane amounts of value, and making sure that you shut down your opponent's cavalry will help quite a bit. And there we go, the Black Orcs are routing now. I simply have to chase them off with my cavalry, and then I should be good. Balance of power is very much in my favor, and I think this match is more or less over. Yeah, the dude brought Azag. Yeah, I think Azag in this matchup against the Lizardmen generally doesn't play out too well, as he doesn't really have too many targets. There's not a lot he really wants to be cycle charging, really, and there's not a lot of units that he can really duel. So in the end, it generally works out pretty badly for him. You want more maps like the Sigmar statue one? Before or after they changed that one up? I loved the sort of ginormous Sigmar statue that they had in the past. Just sort of aesthetics wise, but the new one definitely is a lot more playable. Honestly, I just want them to revamp how terrain affects the game. That would be the best case scenario for me. But let's see. So I just need to close out the game at this point. I think the best way to do that, probably just to net down all of these guys. Completely miss all of them though. Actually, I guess I hit everything except for these mobile guys, but yeah, there we go. I do manage to put the greenskins into army losses, which means that we'll be able to queue up into our next best of 3. Wonderful. GG. All right, so fairly good kite there. Those savage orcs had a really rough time against kite style. If I was going for a big monster rush, they would have held out a little bit better. But all in all, I think generally people say this is more of a harder matchup for the greenskins. I did bring a build that was advantaged against his. You can see even the rock lobber didn't have a lot of targets. Of course, the front line collapsed quite quickly. Same with the black orcs, actually. And it really is the AoEs that punish them. Although in this game, Mastermundi actually didn't get that much value. In fact, I think the most value was my skinks. And yeah, indeed it was. This one unit of chameleon skinks got almost as much as Mastermundi. What an absolute beast. And there we go, my opponent. He taps on out. So let's go ahead and report the win. And queue up into another match. All right. So very strange. The bot seems a little bit slow nowadays. I will have to look into that after the stream. Yeah, for some reason, the commands are just going very slowly. Maybe I can throw in a hotfix right now. Hey, don't worry about it, Rusta. Don't worry about it in the slightest. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to do some live updating while we wait for our next match. And there we go. We queue up against a Sleepy Lion. All right. Let's go ahead and change the name. Sleepy Lion. And then reset these scores. Slicker Masher saying I'm worse. It's okay. Man, everyone just hating on their own gameplay nowadays. Once we actually get the streamer event going, though, I think it should actually be pretty good for new players. Just because they will be able to actually match against people at around their skill level. At least that's sort of the hope. Once the ladder really gets going, I really do want to get a fresh recruit league idea sort of going on, but that's a little bit difficult. At least until we get, like, 10 bronze to silver players playing a day. But enough speculation. Let's go ahead and jump into the game. We're going to check out the maps. We are on the Desert's Bounty. And let's see. The Desert's Bounty. Where is it? There we go. And this time I will first pick Lizardmen. Well, actually, I sort of want to master the first pick Beastmen first. My opponent is picked first. And it looks like they will go for Beastmen, Ban Wood Elves, and Bitonia. So Lizardmen nowadays have a little bit of a bad matchup against Beastmen because of the chariots. But I will sort of pretend I am a Lizardmen 1 pick and go for it. Go for the Lizardmen. Gotta practice those bad matchups. And this is a fairly nice way to do so. You only started playing about 3 weeks ago. Wow. Well, you are bringing some pretty good builds that are like generalist. The main problem being that the builds that I were bringing were very specialized for each matchup, and that definitely made things a little bit harder. I will say though, for your Marauder Horsemen, make sure they don't take too much damage from missiles. If I had to give one quick tip. You're 100% undefeated in multiplayer as you played 0 games. See, does that math actually check out? I know this is completely just missing the point of the joke, but I feel like it would be 0% win rate if you have 0 games, or maybe just undefined because you get a divide by 0. I don't know. If anyone has done math, let me know. Now, this army here is the standard against Beastmen. Loaded in, I think, from Falcon, I think? Or maybe this is... Actually, no, I think this is a stolen build from somewhere. So let's try it out. It does have 2 Ancient Stegodons, a unit that I rarely run ever. But these bad boys come with a bolt thrower on their back. Actually, no. No, not this one. Yeah, Ancient Stegodons, they have a Hwacha on their back. That is basically a machine gun that will hopefully kill off any Beastmen single entities. Is Bretonia actually good against Beastmen? I would say slightly unfavored. Very slightly, but they, you know, they have a chance. Ancient Stegodons gets the skink turrets. Yeah. I think it's Hwacha, what it's called. Let's see. It just says giant blowpipes, but there you go. These guys are pretty scary. They are one of the best single entities in the game, especially in terms of tankiness. But the main thing is that they are pretty slow and lumbering and also rather expensive. We'll see if they're able to win it today. The front line, more than enough to kill basically all forms of Beastmen infantry, and they are speared to make sure that chariots don't cause as many problems. And that's basically the idea. It's a pretty heavy anti-chariot, anti-single entity build. You love Ancient Stegodons in campaign? That's pretty cool. Do you prefer them over Dreadsaurians? I know Dreadsaurians are pretty hype, but they're actually harder to mass, right? There's a limit to how many you can bring until you construct like a special building or something. I think the thing on top of them is called... Oh, it's a Howdah. There you go. What's a Hwacha? Yeah, Howdah's definitely the right word. Also, funny thing is that fairly often... Oh yeah, they fairly often get their melee charge bonus when fighting in melee. Yeah, that is a hidden feature that makes them a lot stronger than they're supposed to be. They act as if they have just extreme levels of melee attack, when they really shouldn't. A little bit of a bug, one might say, but no one has really complained about it just yet. I have no idea what that is. Doom message. Apparently that's what the Howdah is. You usually use a mixture of dinos in your Lizardmen armies. Ancient Stags, Carnosaurs, Troglodons. Oh man. That seems like a lot. For me, I like the spam out of just the same unit to make battles very easy to micro. Because a lot of the time, when you have to play a battle that isn't even going to be close, and you can't auto-resolve it since you might lose units, it's better to just have an army that you can micro at ×4 speed. For multiplayer though, completely different. We got a nice mixture of monsters here. It's pretty heavily focused on the Ancient Stegodons, but I do have Solar Engine. Does come with the blinding debuff over here, basically a Helm of Discord, and this is amazing in fights against single entities. So we'll see how well that does today. My opponent's army gonna be fairly small, so probably not a kite build, and even if it was, I think the Howdahs on these Stegodons should help out. It's a musical instrument? Okay, thank you, Flying Taco. What is it? I don't know how to say that, and I will not attempt to do so, lest I embarrass myself on stream. Alright, so while we wait for our opponent, I will just quickly continue testing my code. Alright, time since... Yeah, so man, I was trying to get out a new feature the other day, and I accidentally made the Ent bot slow down by a lot, and I have no reason why. Like, I have no reason. I don't have any idea why it's lagging right now. Digirito. Alright, that sounds like a Pokemon. I have to be honest. But cool. We can zoom in though and actually see the weapon that everyone's talking about. Yeah, this right here. Somehow this is acting like a machine gun. I guess it's like multiple blow darts stuck together. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I have no idea how these guys are shooting it so quickly. What kind of build could Beastmen go to threaten this build? Honestly, I have no idea. But there we go, my opponent. They are ready. And we'll see if he has what it takes to win against the double Stegodon. There is a Blood Brute Behemoth, a Doom Bull, and a Bray Shaman of the Wild. For me, I have a fairly chunky front line. Lots of Saurus Warriors. Not a lot of mobility. So I will pull back my flanks so that these spears can move in to support the front line, and that they have a little bit less of an exposure to the very threatening chariots. In the meantime, Solar Engine will be plonking away at the forces of the Beastmen, and then I can get my Stegodons, start shooting these Bestigors too. Now, Cygor has been summoned, so I will do a little bit of dodging, moving my infantry up, and just keeping a close eye on that. He throws his rock, and I can pull my infantry back to hopefully avoid the damage. Instead, I walk directly into the boulder. A little bit unfortunate there, but they will live. And the battle is going to begin. Now, there are Beastmen archers here, a tiny bit threatening. Definitely don't want to be taking too many shots from them, although my guys are extremely armored, so perhaps the archers aren't going to be too much of a problem. In fact, mostly what I'm going to do is keep a close eye on the forces of the Beastmen on my flanks, specifically these dogs on the side and the Gorgon. I definitely don't want the Gorgon to get a huge dive in on my guys without you know, getting a little bit of fire onto it. And I think with all my skink skirmishers, I should be able to give the Gorgon a pretty rough time. There are a few hounds moving into the back too, and the Doom Bull is going to be rather scary, but the Gorgon does take a huge volley from the skink fire, and it's already going to be down at rather low HP. So that's pretty good. I can increase the melee defense of all of my guys too. And the fact that I have a bunch of Saurus Warriors in here to support should be quite nice. One bad thing though is that my Saurus did take a pretty heavy beating on the front line, losing to the Korok's Man Rippers pretty hard. Maybe I should have thrown a banishment down on them faster. And that's going to make things a little bit dicier than it would be otherwise. My Lord too, getting sniped out by the Doom Bull, will have to evacuate. And he does have the support of the two Stegodons, so I feel like he should be fairly safe. The Chariot 2 is sort of out of position, isn't really helping with the main fight. And as long as this sort of center pocket here holds, I'm going to be feeling pretty confident. I do lose one of my skinks though, and my Stegodon, or my Solar Engine, isn't firing at the moment, which is pretty bad. But the Doom Bull is losing his fight. My Saurus Warriors, too, on the flanks, are managing to push forward. This is especially good since they can pressure the archers. And honestly, the double Stegodon is laying just complete carnage onto the Doom Bull. He's barely been able to get any actual damage onto them. And he's already down for the count, despite lowering the melee defense by a fairly significant amount. It seems like the double Stegodon is just a little bit too strong for this poor Doom Bull, and he does rout off. So that's going to be a very big win for me, unless the Beastmen really pull something crazy out of their back pocket. With the Gorgon falling so early, they basically have no more single entity tools left. And that should be spelling the end for them. My Lord, he does take quite a bit of damage though from this, I guess from the Razorgore herd. He will take a little bit of heat, but a single regrowth onto him should be able to pick him back up. The Howdahs on the Stegodons can pick off the Beastmen forces as they rally back into the battle. And I do indeed have the solar engine back up. And he will be focusing down the chariot. Missing completely, unfortunately, but putting some pressure on nonetheless. It might actually be better to have him target some cavalry instead. But at this point in the battle, it is more or less decided. Who's that Pokemon? Let's see. Alright. So, nothing too crazy going on in chat. r/formation porn. Is it really though? My formation was pretty basic. Unless you're talking about the Beastmen formation. Honestly, it all seemed pretty standard for me. You found the Doom Bolt underwhelming in campaign. Yeah, that's mostly just campaign problems. But if you give him regeneration and cycle charge with him enough, I'm sure that he'll still be able to do fairly well for himself. A lot of things in multiplayer that are good though do not. Wow, that solar engine just it hit the body of the Gorgon. But yeah, a lot of things in campaign that are really underwhelming are extremely good in multiplayer. Especially cheap cavalry is not that strong in campaign, although definitely underrated, I would say. In multiplayer, it's absolutely a necessity to have. But there we go, we do manage to rout off the Bray Shaman. Very good, and now we can move on to game number 2. Pretty nice. The main winners here for sure were these Skink Javelins. You can see they got insane value for themselves with such a cheap unit. And that's because the Gorgon is completely unarmored, so a single volley of Javelins will really be able to punish it. The Warhounds didn't really have too many targets either, and once the Doom Bull was down, it was a pretty straightforward victory from there. Not bad. That puts us at 1 win. Can switch the map and try out some more Beastmen play. Let's see, we are on River Amexon. Nice, there we go. GG. Yeah, this build, I think it was made by one of my ODM clanmates. It's an amazing build, I have to say. I think I'm allowed to go public with it, I think. But anyways, we're on River Amexon. And we'll go Beastmen and ban out the... what does one usually ban with Beastmen? The Wood Elves, for sure. And I'm tempted to see how the fight against the vampire counts go. Let's see, we'll ban the Wood Elves and... Honestly, they have a pretty good matchup all around versus everyone. I guess the Wood Elves and the Lizardmen, so that he doesn't play Lizardmen. But I do think that matchup is pretty favored for Beastmen. Yeah, GG indeed. Seems like he should have brought the Gorbel since it has armor. Maybe. I don't think the Gorbel does especially well against the Stegodons though. Those ancient Stegodons are absolutely brutal. Alright, so let's see. Yeah, back to fixing up the code for the bots. Need to figure out why in the world it is lagging. Okay, so hopefully this fixes it. Oh, what the? My opponent just left. Why'd he leave? Did you DC? Alright. Let's see if he can get back in here. You're not sure what the Beastmen have to deal with double Stegodon. Well, you can take a look. The units, Behemoths and Gorgons can do okay, but you have to be really careful about keeping them safe. I don't think Beastmen have Lore of Metal, but they can debuff armor by a bit, which helps out the archers for sure. And I think probably the biggest winner here, Centaurs with throwing axes, I would say are the best option. You want to win the infantry fight and then use these guys to clear things out. Oh yes, Torox is pretty good too, as he does have just insane combat stats, plus a lucky banner. He's pretty brutal. My opponent did disconnect though, so I guess we'll give him 10 minutes, and if he doesn't respond, we can call it a win, since we did play the first match. Alright. But yeah, I think Beastmen nowadays, they do have really good tools against single entities. I would say generally Beastmen can win most single entity fights, especially with chariots. Like, if you wanted to go really hard on it, you know, you go Torox, you take a Wargore, and then you go like, you know, double Behemoth. This amount of single entity power would be pretty devastating if you're not getting shot to death, which could be a big if, honestly. I'm going to restart the server real quick. Maybe Amazon servers are just lagging a bit. Everything seems just a tiny bit sluggish today, and I'm not sure why. But I did update it, so hopefully it doesn't stay slowed down. Soulblight Archer combo, yeah, I was thinking that. It is only minus 30 armor though, so it's not that much of a... It's not that big. If I were to play against the Lizardmen though, my usual build, I go for Tuscore Chariots to cycle charge down the infantry. Twitch was laggy too. Oh, thank you very much, Bubba. Yeah, so it seems quite likely then that Amazon servers are just tanking a little bit. Everything is still running though, and we are streaming on YouTube. Take that, Twitch. So that makes life a little bit easier. Alright, and our opponent should be back in just a second. Minotaurs can be decent too if you can kill the Saurus and the missiles. Yeah, seems about right. I was watching Flying Taco, your interview with Human Boy a while ago about the Tomb Kings. I would like to see how your Tomb Kings build with Ushopti Great Bows does against my Coast, because I think I have a Vampire Coast build that can beat Ushopti. I don't know how well it does against a Rush, and I also don't know how well it does against archers, so maybe it's a bit too hard of a hard counter. But I feel like against any amount of single entities, it should be able to do well. Maybe I'm just crazy though. Torox and ROR Gorgon will put a lot of pressure on Lizardmen single entities, says Tequila Sunset. Yeah, especially Torox. He can just make a mad dive for your opponent's Lord. And that's always pretty scary, especially if it's just a single Slann. But yeah, I do feel like Tomb Kings is pretty advantaged against Coast though. It can be pretty even since there's a little bit of coin flipping, plus the magic damage on Lore of Death changes things a lot. And I think that's what sort of shifts it into the side of Tomb Kings nowadays. Alright, so we got Chaos. Now, how do I want to play this time around? Last time I went for a sort of crazy chariot build. And I sort of feel like going for a chariot build again. It should be pretty good. You main Chaos would like a similar playstyle. Let's see, what do you mean by that? Oh, yeah. Yeah, Beastmen are fairly similar to Chaos, although the infantry is a lot weaker. It depends on what style of Chaos that you play. I feel like Greenskins is fairly similar too. I'm not sure. Chaos is, oh, I guess sort of Norska. If you like more monsters and less elite infantry. But Chaos, Norska, and Beastmen are your main rush factions. Just the infantry gets weaker and weaker as you go down the line. Alright, so this is going to be a Torox build. I want to be taking on the chaos in the single entity fight. And that means I need some way of chasing down the Marauder Horsemen. That's going to mean a lot of Centaurs for sure. And for my front line, I'm going to go for... let's see, let's go for some Ungor Spearmen Herd, just ×5. Let's not forget our caster, which will be a... let's see here. What helps the most against single entities? Death is for more of a long game. Beasts does let you summon manticores, which can be quite devastating. And Wild, I feel like it has a debuff. I can give my guys plus 40 melee attack if I wanted to. Traitor Kin perhaps, but it doesn't actually help that much in a fight. Tomb Kings versus Coast is very dynamic, you think? Yeah, I think so. Just not enough Tomb Kings and Coast players out there, really. And I will go Lore of Shadows. Take out this chariot so that I have my Bray Shaman on his mobility here. Enfeebling Foe, a great ability in fights. And Mystifying Miasma. Malkoth's actually pretty good against elite infantry. It will do a surprising amount of damage, I gotta say. Take the Jagged Dagger too. And what do we got? So I have my 4 chariots, I got my single entity, but I don't have a way to chase off Marauder Horsemen except for my cavalry. Not the worst option in the world, honestly. Maybe I can take a few more dogs in there. Let's see, how do I round out this build? Maybe a Jabberslate? That's a unit that is fairly underplayed by me. Alternatively, I double down and really go hard on the cavalry. I did say I sort of wanted to focus on fighting single entities, so probably a Gorable is the option here. Honestly, I'm not sure. I do want to fit in a Gorgon though, so I will cut out one of my Centaurs, fit that in, and hopefully this goes okay. The plan: win the frontline fight with my chariots, chase off the cavalry with my own, and then win the single entity fight with the Gorgon and Taurox. They are a fairly strong combo together. Should be able to win most fights, especially with Enfeebling Foe. So that's going to be the hope. What's the main difference between Razorgore chariots and Tuskgore? Razorgore are much more expensive and they do a little bit more damage. I would say generally not very worth it, since they don't get that much more HP for the extra money, which is the limiting factor on chariots. They do have a better AP profile. It's not a huge difference. Tuskgores deal so much armor piercing damage. It's sort of like they don't really need more. It's crazy. All right, but here we go. We got a chariot build for the Beastmen. Taurox and a Gorgon for my single entity support. We got a nice chunky line of Tuskgore chariots. And then a single Centaur throwing axes because they give poison. And their ranged attacks will be helping out a ton against these single entities. These guys, I would say it's a fairly safe bet to take these guys every game. Probably good to take a few throwing axes, to be honest. Especially since a lot of people will try to kite the Beastmen. But I think this build should be quite ferocious. Now, I do want to get the Marauder Horsemen. And to do that, I will put my cavalry on the flanks. They won't really be helping the front line too much. Especially because they lack the armor piercing that the great weapon variants have. It should be good. I feel like committed, like a really hardcore chaos single entity blob would beat these two guys. But maybe not with the Centaur support. If I throw in some chariots for some mass too, I should be fine. But we'll really have to see. I am excited to see where this 4 chariot meta goes with Beastmen though. Tuskgore chariots really are just absolutely insane. Scribbling notes furiously. We don't know if it works yet. We do not know yet. But there we go, our opponent is ready. Let's go ahead and begin the battle. And for the forces, oh, whoopsie daisies. For the forces of chaos. Great, there goes my entire formation. We are going to be seeing a couple Marauder horsemen on the front lines. And a pretty cheap front line of Chaos Marauders. Just some halberds on the sides to hold up a little bit better against the cavalry. So most of my forces are going to be focused on actually... oh, whoops, didn't dodge there. Yeah, most of my chariots are actually going to focus on breaking the center line. I don't really intend to fight these halberds, as it's sort of just a bad trade until the front line is more shut down. And I won't even be engaging with my infantry early on the flanks. The reason, because it's such a bad trade and I don't want to have my chariots there. It's just generally a bad idea. There is Sartorial here too. He's not especially threatening due to the fact that, oh man, that's the wrong hotkey. It's not especially threatening since he's not an insane combatant or anything. I will be eating a bit of a fat final transmutation to the face. Just a little bit unfortunate, but the chariots, they do plow through and they will be getting in some fairly good damage. Right off the bat, there are a few dogs here charging into my Centaurs. These Chaos Marauders are moving in too, getting in some pretty nice damage, and Torox looks like he is getting gooned down by the forces of chaos. So a simple counter charge from the Bloodroot Behemoth, I should be in a much better situation. As predicted, the front line did collapse fairly hard for the forces of chaos. They actually had a very, very rough time there. And that means that my Centaurs or my Tuskor chariots are going to have a much easier time cycle charging now, since the flanks are extremely exposed for chaos. Let's see here, my cavalry is doing fairly good for themselves. They work quite well as a way of chasing down Marauder horsemen, it seems. I'm not sure how their speed actually stacks up, but so far it's working out quite well. And the forces of chaos are even pulling into the forest, which is a bit of a bonus for me. Beastmen, they generally have quite a few combat bonuses in the forest, so I think this should be helping me out quite a bit. Another Mystifying Miasma on the infantry should help me win that engagement, as they will be taking quite a bit of damage. I don't want my caster to die though, especially to Sartorial, so I will pull him away into the forest, find a little bit of a safer position. He wants to instead be cycle charging the infantry, but these dragon ogres are definitely going to be a little bit threatening. What is bad too is that these chaos manticores will be coming on in. They look to be trying to snipe out Torox here right now, but I might actually be able to pick one out with some Centaur support, turning on him as soon as the Centaurs charge in. It looks like that will be winning me this engagement. Yeah, he does have to disengage, but he is poisoned now. And with the poison, I don't think he'll be able to escape here. Some dragon ogres are coming in to assist him, but he does actually get caught up, and he does, I think, intentionally stop specifically so that the dragon ogres can engage. A little bit scary for my large units here, but I will be able to kill off that chaos, not sorcerer, exalted hero. And with a back charge of these chariots, we'll see how much damage they do to the dragon ogres. It seems like not a lot, to be honest, but just charging them in the back should be able to get enough damage to hopefully get them to rout a little bit faster. What's much more important though, since chariots have been fixed, is to get a big charge with my Centaurs, and with that I am able to rout off those dragon ogres pretty easily. The goal now is to chase them off so that they're not much of a problem later in the game. And then it's more or less clean up from here. I don't really feel like Chaos has enough to win an engagement against this blob. And taking the position in the forest, I think the Gorgon has it has the Woodsman ability, and it doesn't take penalties from being in the forest. So this is sort of a bad idea for Chaos, unless I'm mistaken. But yeah, by the looks of it, the Gorgon doesn't take any penalties, and with a little bit of lag, we'll see if our opponent manages to stay connected, or if we manage to stay connected. We may very well disconnect. Oh, and there we go. He drops from the game. All right. But there we go. Fairly straightforward win. The main problem here for Chaos is that their exalted heroes just were not able to find targets to fight. Really, they could only dive in on my chariot, my caster, to get a lot of damage, but with his mobility, he was able to escape fairly easily, and the front line of Chaos fell pretty quickly to my various Tuskor chariots. Still though, the real heroes here, having this one unit of throwing axes to provide poison and chase down heroes, is very good, and the Centaurs to chase off horsemen felt a little bit inefficient, I gotta say. They did an okay job at it, but they're not running them down by any means. Maybe I'll take some poison warhounds instead. But still, all in all, pretty good. We can go ahead and take the victory there. Let's go ahead and report the win. And then as soon as Amazon servers catch up, we can queue up into, I think, probably the last best of 3 of today. Flying Taco coming on in with the queue. We'll see if we manage to match up into each other, as the servers barely cling on to life. But we will see. I do manage to queue up. Will Flying Taco queue up in time? And there we go. We do queue up into each other. So this is going to be a fairly high level game. Should be quite exciting. Nice. Lobby is up. So here we go. Final match of today against one of the best players in the tournament scene currently. Let's see how it goes. Do you think Torox is better than Mogre? It depends on the situation. Mogre is much better at box busting, whereas Torox is much better as a single entity fighter. And you'll want those different skills for different situations. In general, though, I think Torox is he is the more common pick. And since a lot of people like to go single entity builds against the Beastmen, Torox is usually the counter that you want to be running. If I had to take one Lord every game, it probably would be Torox, to be honest. Here we go, the map is set. The first pick is going to be Flying Taco. We will have to see how that goes. Alright, Big Yoshi. I assume this is Taco. He is coming in with a Lizardmen as his default, so very likely Flying Taco. And we'll see what he decides to do. Go ahead and change the scores too, why don't we? Let's see. Nope. That's strange. Where are the for some reason oh, okay, I see what I did wrong. There we go. Okay, Flying Taco. There we go. Now his picks are going to be, and he is deciding, I would expect possibly some Lizardmen play. Possibly even some, maybe Beastmen. Flying Taco is fairly well known for being a pretty hard rush player. So we will have our work cut out for us today. But he is deciding. If he bans Beastmen and Lizardmen, we'll have to figure out some other faction to play today. But I think that should be fine. Ooh. Oh, man. Man, I am. It's weird. I don't feel tired, but I can feel my ability to speak is slightly hindered today. I did wake up at 1 p.m. due to some sleep schedule shenanigans. So I feel like that's probably contributing to that. But I do feel quite awake. Definitely a strange feeling indeed. I don't know if anyone else here has completely obliterated sleep schedules. I'm trying, Bubba. I'm staying hydrated. I'm doing my best. Oh, hey, human boy. Did you have a tournament earlier today? I don't know. I didn't know if it was still running when I started my stream. But for those of you that don't know, Human Boy does host a lot of community events. I was actually planning to try out your speedrun, actually. I've been wanting to play that since forever, but I just haven't been able to. I've been working on the ladder for the past while. But now that most of the features are actually fixed, I think I should be able to finally try out that siege defense challenge. AI ally tournament was fun. That's good to hear. Start to finish 1 hour. Oh my gosh, that's like the shortest tournament I've ever heard. How were the strategies? Was it extremely different from the usual? From how things usually play out? Let's see, Lizardmen against the Wood Elves. There we go. Now we are on fruit rules, which means that chameleon stalkers are going to be a little bit limited. But I do feel like they are the answer here in this matchup. Stalkers, specifically, they do really great against low armored large units. And that's basically the entire Wood Elf roster, at least in terms of their important cavalry. So I'm really hoping that carries me here. Oh, actually, stalkers in the fruit rules are separated from skinks. So I could actually do some crazy stuff here. They do count as 360 though. So that will limit me. So never mind. Let's see, let's go for 4 of them. That seems pretty fun. Let's see, all best of 1 with pre-made armies. Oh my gosh, yeah, pre-made armies. What a blessing for tournament organizers. It's absolutely great. Because yeah, one of the big banes of tournaments is having it just go on for 6 hours straight. Extremely draining, I gotta say. Someday you hope we'll be able to have 8 versus 8 tiny fun games. I can only imagine how bad the connection issues would be with that. That would be something for sure. Now I could take Oxyotl. This type of build, it is sort of it's a bit of a strange. I don't know if I want to be kiting or rushing. I sort of feel like rushing. That feels a little bit better here. Let's see, but if I am rushing, I can't take any pterodons because my 360 is maxed out. Maybe I do go for a more sort of laid back build. Play much more in the background. Honestly, I do really feel like rushing though, so maybe I will go for some feral stegodons, maybe even a double bastillodon type of play. Seems not too bad. One of the big problems with Lizardmen Rush is that Saurus are so incredibly slow that they have a hard time catching anything really. But I can take me some chameleon skinks, just going really hard on that front. And you know what, I can even cut the Saurus warriors and opt for cavalry instead. I will need some anti-single entity though, and I will cut a skink for Oxyotl, as he is great for killing something like Durthu in the late game. Take his blowpipe ability to shoot at some wild riders, why don't we? And then for my caster, opt for a... maybe not a skink oracle. I feel like that would get sniped out immediately. Maybe not. Is the skink oracle amazing here? He can heal. Oh man, but he's so expensive. Let's just opt for the skink priest of beasts instead. The lazy man's spellcaster. I will have to make sure he doesn't get sniped out, so he'll have to stay fairly far back away from everything. And the rest is just going to be straight up cavalry. There we go. Nice. So we got a pretty nice skink cavalry rush against the wood elves. I got a lot of ranged, and the hope is that they'll be able to fend off against cavalry. Go croak, loopy. You want me to go croak against flying taco? You madman. But yeah, if they actually do manage to get an 8 versus 8, that would be amazing. I would be really excited about a head-to-head game mode where you can have multiple people playing. Turin mentioned this earlier, and that seems like it would just be absolutely great. I think that would be very, very fun. But sadly, I don't think it's exactly in CA's mind to do that just yet. They'll never expect it. Yes, the element of surprise. The best component to any battle. You don't need an army if you are surprising enough. I think this build is this is sort of a weird build. Before Oxyotl was released, this build would have a few problems in that it's not particularly strong against any amount of armor. So Durthu in particular would be quite a bit of a problem actually against a build such as this. But with the advent of Oxyotl, I'm feeling a lot more confident that this is going to do okay. I have a ton of cavalry, I have a ton of skinks, which is quite good against, you know, sort of Waywatcher styles of play. So I think we should be good. Free-for-all campaign would be awesome. Oh, for sure, for sure. Now, the army of the Wood Elves, we're going to see a lot of cavalry here, a lot of dryads. And that means there's going to be a few stealth units here for sure. Which one specifically, we are not sure yet. But they might get some volleys in on my chameleon stalkers here. Sisters of Twilight getting in some volleys against my skinks, but won't be getting in too much damage, and I can begin the kiting of this infantry. It does mean that the cavalry is going to be a little bit scarier here. They are overloading one of my flanks just a tiny bit. Let's go ahead and continue to pull these guys back. Flying Taco going for a big old flank denial here. And I need to start getting in my cavalry engaged. I do have to be a little bit careful here. It's not going to be exactly a straightforward fight. And already my caster is getting a tiny bit sniped out. Now, the Great Stag Knights are going to be a bit of a problem. I do manage to dodge the initial volley here, but the flank overload is going to be causing me a few problems. Especially as the Deepwood Scouts here on the flank have actually dived on in. They are getting a lot of damage onto my cavalry. But overall, it seems like the trading is going okay for me. A nice charge from Flying Taco, though, does slam into the sides of my forces, getting in some pretty nice damage here. But I will be getting in a little bit of my own cavalry on the flank, and if I do win this main cavalry fight, I think I should be able to win the battle. As for my Stegodons, I have no idea where they are. They were completely in the wrong area of the battlefield, just doing absolutely nothing, which is quite bad for me. Not exactly the play that you want to be making. And you know what? After routing off the cavalry here, I'm actually going to be pulling back my own cavalry. The reason for this, specifically, is because I do not want them to get kited out by these Waystalkers or Deepwood Scouts. They would be able to fairly easily kite out my cavalry, I feel. Because they do have cavalry support for themselves. And instead, I'm going to chase them off with my chameleon skinks, which take a lot less damage from them and will be able to screen out those forces so that I can win this center line engagement, which actually does go fairly well in my favor, with a lot of the dryads actually now getting routed off. The balance of power, though, is actually surprisingly enough in the favor of the Lizardmen, or of the Wood Elves. I'm not sure exactly why, as I do feel like I have a pretty nice advantage here. But we'll have to make sure that we stay pretty careful here. Some of these Wild Riders do move in to get some damage in on my forces, but they will be taking quite a bit of damage from my Bastiladons, who got a fairly good counter charge onto them. I have a lot of cavalry alive too, and there aren't any dryads really here to support. These Glade Riders are going to be a little bit of an issue, getting in a fairly nice charge on my forces, but actually they do decide to disengage. Oxyotl in the meantime will be poking away at the Sisters of Twilight, getting in a pretty nice damage for himself, and I think over the course of the game, he should be able to get them to rout off. Real quick, let's see if they have their healing. They do not have their healing, which is very, very good for me, as it means that the constant poke from Oxyotl will be able to eventually take them out. They don't have a lot of healing either, so I'm feeling quite good about this position. Of course, the Deepwood Scouts will be able to constantly pressure me, but just looking at how many units of infantry I have left at this point, I don't think the Wood Elves will be able to win it. Mostly the Great Stag Knights are going to be, I guess, the biggest problem in this situation. But Great Stag Knights alone do not win a game. At least I don't believe so. The Deepwood Scouts too aren't especially strong versus these Stegodons, so I would say we are indeed in a fairly comfortable place. Oxyotl is going to move up now. Gonna try to get in some nice snipes on the Stag Knights. He can fairly easily take out models with his sort of shotgun blast ability. But the Stag Knights are in a little bit of an awkward position, so instead I'll just target some Glade Riders just to put that ability on cooldown. Takes out about 3 models, definitely quite good for Oxyotl. And soon enough I will have myself another Manticore summon, if needed. Now, the Wood Elves, they are barreling down, getting in some pretty nice damage here. Actually, a really nice counter charge on the left flank. That did not turn out great for me, as I did not react to that appropriately. Sisters of Twilight with their shotgun effect, getting in some pretty nice damage too. But I think with a big old counter charge from my cavalry over there, should be able to win it. Sisters of Twilight are doing fairly good for themselves, being able to constantly poke down my forces here, but Oxyotl over the course of the game should be able to beat them down. Plus the Bastiladon, still at very high HP, is very good for me. And the Wood Elves are having to disengage once again, with the balance of power now going in my favor. And the Deepwood Scouts are rather rapidly running out of ammunition. Now it seems like a great time to use that Manticore summon too, just to get these Stag Knights off of my back. I definitely don't want them to be overrunning me here, and it seems like they are on the quest to do exactly that, getting in fairly good trades all around against all of my forces here. I will, let's see, boost the leadership of some of my cavalry to pick them up, but if I'm not careful here, these Stag Knights might actually run a lot of cleanup on my forces. The Bastiladon does a good job against the Deepwood Scouts, thankfully, but let's see how well the Stag Knights are doing. They're actually at about half HP, and we will have to see how well this goes. Oxyotl, though, still at very high ammunition. He did manage to escape that onslaught without taking too much damage, so that's very good for him. I did lose all of my cavalry in that main engagement, and potentially I could actually get a pretty nice pick here on a ton of the Stag Knights. I'll be using the missile attack on Oxyotl to try and snipe them out, and we'll see how that goes. Oh, but Flying Taco with the sick dodges actually manages to keep those guys nice and safe. Still, though, Oxyotl constantly poking away at them should be able to eventually wear them down. The Stag Knights will have to move in to engage at some point in the battle, and from there I have a good amount of forces to hopefully charge them down. I'm really liking the Bastiladon pick, though, as they did do really well at just surviving and being an overall pain for the Wood Elf army. Oxyotl too, doing a great job against the Stag Knights. The fact that he kills models is really good for him, and we'll see how well he does here heading on into the late game. He is limited in ammunition, so he will run out eventually. And I do have to be a little bit wary on his shots. Let's see. Oxyotl, he's sitting at a comfortable 17 ammunition. So, although still rather high, I will have to be a bit careful. I did brace the chameleon stalkers there too. That did actually manage to keep them rather safe. When you brace your units, they do get a pretty nice increase to their mass, which is great. It makes sure that the cavalry does not completely overrun them. In the meantime, Stag Knight's coming back into the battlefield. Oxyotl taking quite a bit of damage from the Sisters of Twilight. I will actually have to pull him away here to try and get him back into stealth, as I really would not want him to get picked off. That would be the worst case scenario. The Waystalker actually focusing him down. And if Oxyotl routes off, that would be really bad. So let's go ahead and make sure that he retreats into a safer position. Turn on fire at will, and just stay away from everything. Thankfully, he is stealthed up. He can't be seen, and he will be able to outduel the Waystalker, I think, over the long term. Waystalker 2 running fairly low on ammunition is good for me. But there are still 6 great Stag Knights left alive, and they're going to be a little bit of a problem. Thankfully, Oxyotl, though, does just barely manage to keep it together. Oh boy, but the Stag Knights are hunting. They do move in towards him. They see his location. Flying Taco just seeing Oxyotl getting his shot off. And the Stag Knights do actually dive in on top of him. That's going to be a little bit scary, since if my lord dies here, the Bastillodons will be very prone to routing off themselves. But with a bit of infantry support, I think good old Oxyotl should be able to make it out alive. And there we go. The Stag Knights do fall, and we get a GG from Flying Taco. Oh my gosh. Very, very tense game there. I did feel like I was ahead at about the midway point, but it got really scary once Oxyotl started to get focused down. He was an absolute hero, though, in that battle. Having Luther Harkin levels of ammunition, paying for himself 2 times over. What a beast. What a beast. Manticore Summoner did really good too when he got the summons, and with those combined, I managed to shut down the Stag Knights fairly well. The flank overload was a good call for Taco, though. It did get him a good early game lead, as he was able to put a lot of pressure on my flank and nearly win it. But we did just barely manage to come out on top. With the Stalkers actually doing really well for themselves, despite mostly just shooting infantry. Man, Oxyotl though. 2,600 value. That is like Marathi numbers, and he's not even a caster. Alright, but what's the next map? It's gonna be Sword of Torgald. Not my most favorite map, it's actually fairly bad for gun builds, but we're playing Beastmen today. Let's see, where is it at? Where is it at? Sword of Torgald. There we go, that took forever. Alright, so we are first picking. I will go the Beastmen, and we're going to ban the... Do I ban the Vampire counts here? I feel like Beastmen actually win it. So I will choose not to ban that. Instead, I will ban the Tomb Kings. And I will also ban Chaos, probably, because Wood Elves is already out of the picture. Chaos can be pretty scary, so I feel like this is a pretty good ban. Flying Taco too did recently get interviewed for Tomb Kings and their matchups, so I feel like it's a good call to do this. Oh, I forgot to check who got more value between Oxyotl and the sisters. Darn it! Darn it! Oh man, I should have checked. Now we are gonna see a Lizardmen pick from Flying Taco, which means it's time to take a look at my Beastmen build. So I have a preloaded one, but I don't really have a build that feels really solidified just yet. I do really like the Tuskor chariots though, so I will probably be running a lot of those. What can Tomb Kings do that's threatening? I have no idea. I just needed a second ban. I feel like just because they are an undead faction, though, it can get a little bit dicey. But it's just a completely unexplored matchup for me personally. I sort of want to get more games in with ODM before I really dive into playing that matchup. Now, for my build, it's going to be a Tuskor build. We got a whole lot of those guys. But the question is, can I get a single entity fight that works out for me? I feel like going in for the mass Centaur throwing axes is fairly good, especially since by all means I should be winning the single the infantry fight. I've just spent so much money into it. That should work out quite well for me. One Ungor Raider, always a safe pick. But what do I do from there? I've spent most of my money already. I do think the Beastcaster is a good idea, but I'm not sure. He's going to Kai? Okay, yeah, that's very likely. That's very, very... Actually, oh, he's going to Kai sub-faction. Yeah, so... Oh my gosh, Flying Taco. Now, he has beaten me with Nakai before. Against my Vampire Coast, no less. So... I definitely won't be going easy on him, as he definitely knows what he's doing. But for me, I need to decide what to do. I could do the same style as I did last time, where I clear out all of the infantry, and then in the late game when it's just single entities left, it's fairly straightforward. Cycle charging with Taurox, basically. Summoning Manticores where I can. That seems like not a bad idea. Nakai is favored into Coast versus Lizardmen matchup. It's well known. Yeah. Does Nakai have Aquatic? I feel like he doesn't. That would be great though. Honestly, I have no idea why. I feel like if they gave Nakai sort of 40% damage resistance, that would launch him into the meta. But sadly, not today. Now, Centaur throwing axes are good. I'm a little bit worried that they're going to get sniped out, but if you think about it, most of the range is going to be shooting at the Tuskor chariots. Lizardmen could go for a pretty heavy cavalry build, and that would probably be the worst case for me. So, pretty good reason to bring Centaur great weapons instead, so that I can get some counter charges on cold ones. That feels like a much safer play. Love Nakai's perfect vigor aura. Yeah, that one's pretty sick. In the late game, you basically get Sigvalds all around Nakai. But his biggest problem is that he's just a little bit slow. He suffers some dwarf syndrome, where he just can't really pressure anywhere on the battlefield. And that's basically the biggest problem there. Now, I got my counter chargers. I have my anti-infantry killers. I got my anti-Pterodon plays, and if Flying Taco does decide to go for no air, the Harpies will work quite well at shutting down any cavalry, basically negating their charge. Taurox for late game cycle charging. And that's basically it. It's just a lot of Tuskor chariots. So fingers crossed that goes well. Let's quickly check. Yeah, he's not on the map. Wonderful. Yeah, having a I don't feel like taking damage button is pretty nice. Yeah, basically. We saw that with Grom for like a good few metas actually. And we're gonna see it with Taurox, but thankfully Beastmen feel like they're in a fairly good place right now. And the fact that Taurox doesn't have regeneration means that he only uses his ability like once or two times per battle. Unlike Grom, who is incentivized to stall out the game, to use as many lucky banners as possible. So with Taurox, I really feel like they figured out how to design that ability a little bit better. That's right, Zero. That's right. 15-foot dwarf indeed. But here we go. We got Taurox. We got our caster. We're gonna put them on the hills so that ranged attacks have a little bit of a harder time targeting. For those of you that don't know ranged units in Warhammer, they don't know how to shoot at things on hills. It is a well-known predicament that these units have. the army for Flying Taco fairly large. He might have a lot of cavalry that I will have to be wary of. But overall, I feel like I'm feeling medium confident here. Let's see how it goes. This is going to rely a lot on how well these chariots do. Flying Taco might be able to shut them down completely. That is for us to find out in this battle. Yeah, his ward save does not recharge nearly as fast. That is correct. Now, it's going to be a fairly air-heavy style of play from Flying Taco. This means that my Harpies will have to get in there. Same with my Centaurs. And then I can move up my chariots to support my infantry. These are Fire Leech Bolas, so they're going to be especially strong against the forces of my infantry. But we'll see how well the Harpies do at actually chasing them off. If I can keep them from hitting my infantry, I should be more or less fine. But this early engagement is actually a little bit scary for me, especially since I have to make sure that my attack timings work out well. Let's go ahead and get this guy into the right control group. Get my Harpies in to continue chasing off these guys. Now, Flying Taco, he's opted for a pretty nice kite style of play. Simply disengaging and punishing my Harpies for getting too close to these range units, actually, with these chameleon skinks on the ground. But I'm thinking once my chariots actually get in on the action, I will be seeing a much better situation. A bit of a gap forming on the left-hand flank, since the skirmishers are going to the other flank instead, means that I can't actually get my chariots in to properly chase off all of these skink units. My infantry will be close behind, ready to dive on in. Plus, I have my cavalry here, which should be able to slam in too, and hopefully get in a lot of value. And already we're seeing this little flank overload action working quite well for me. Cavalry going to be bouncing between the forces of the Lizardmen here, and we did force Flying Taco to engage, so that's really good. Torox is going to have to be careful, though. We definitely don't want him getting sniped out. The possibilities are definitely there that could happen. My cavalry is going to have to be a little bit careful too, just a tiny bit wary to make sure that they don't take too much damage here. Now, Nakai, he does get caught out by Torox, immediately going to very little HP. Skink Oracle moves in to try and assist, but looks like he won't really be able to. And the duel has begun. Now we are seeing that it's a pretty heavy disengage here. Nakai is trying to get into a safer position. My Centaur throwing axes too, actually getting bombarded by the rather annoying Fire Leech Bolas. That's not great for me. We'll see how this actually goes. The Centaur throwing axes should be able to fare quite well here, I think. Nakai's getting absolutely beaten down on too, which is absolutely marvelous. And as long as I continue chasing them with Torox, I think I should be okay, especially with the Skink Oracle. Just having the worst day of his life, getting run down by the chariots with no real easy answers to really help him out. Since there's actually, the Lizardmen forces here are lacking quite heavily on their cavalry. Nakai does turn around to face down Torox, which means that it's time to proc his passive, and with the chariots more or less freed up to do as they wish, I'm going to split them up now to deal with all of these skinks. As long as the Skink Oracle is shut down, I don't have to worry about using my chariots to assist in that fight. And then I think I should be good. Harpies are now moving in. Their goal specifically is to, to shut down these pterodons. They are extremely good against them. Balance of power is now in my favor, but that is sort of just, that's how the Beastmen rumble, really. And Torox continues to chase down the dreaded Nakai. Unfortunately, just having a really rough time here. And with the majority of the Lizardmen forces now running off, I think we should have a victory. Which is pretty unfortunate when you consider the fact that Flying Taco went Nakai against me. But such is the way of things. And I went for basically as competitive of a build as I could. There we go. Most of the forces now routing off. And the game going to the Beastmen. Pretty unfortunate. I would have hoped that Nakai would have done better there, but he just had a very rough time. The quad chariots, too. Extremely devastating versus a kite build like this. And yeah, just really not having the cavalry to hold well. Of course, having more cavalry is extremely expensive, so they're very hard to afford. But you can see just the overwhelming mobility here for the Beastmen really gave the Lizardmen forces a hard time. Centaur, great weapons, doing a lot better than I expected. Once again, I actually really like these guys. With the Harpies getting amazing value, shutting down the Pterodon Riders. When you play Beastmen, always make sure you take Harpies to shut down any Air Force. But there we go, that's basically the gist of it. His build would have had a very hard time versus mine regardless, with the Chariots doing rather well for themselves. Still, Nakai managed to pull in 800 gold value, so not the worst thing in the world, I guess. Nakai probably did his dumb charge animation, which got him out of position. I would not be surprised, for sure. But there we go. That's going to be the end of the stream today. Thank you very much, guys, for coming in to watch. And before we close it out, special thanks to our patrons down below. As you can see over there, we already got a few patrons for the Ent-Ladder bot, supporting the tournament prize pool so we can host a ton of them. Special thanks in particular to Red Wedding Planner, Ramakarol, who have sponsored their own bonus tournaments, and Biblington, who generously supported the ladder. So with that out of the way, thank you very much, and we will close off.